So here we go. All right, we are recording and transcribing. So welcome to episode 67 of Just This. Richard Rohr. Can you believe it's been 67 episodes? We've been doing this since a year ago, February. It's about time we got done. So we're getting close here. We got 12 more sections, and this one that we're going to start on today, page 99, Beholding, is the first of 12 prompts that are going to comprise the balance of this section. We just got through the introduction um, last week, and where he was talking about practices and prompts and getting us primed for jumping right into them. And so this first one is going to be on beholding. Before we get into that, is there anything left over from last week that anybody wanted to develop more fully, discuss? Anything on your minds? Old business. Okie dokie. Then we're cleared for takeoff. Let's go ahead and read through this section, and then we'll come back and start picking it apart and see what we got to say. So, beholding, page 99. Have you ever noticed how many of the apparitions in the Bible begin with behold? An unusual word hardly ever used in common conversation. It is usually uttered as a command, an invitation, or perhaps a call to a different style of attention. In a sense, it is a giveaway that in fact you can and need to switch gears once in a while to be ready to perceive what is about to come at you. When I have sent people into the woods on a retreat, I tell them to draw a symbolic line in the sand somehow and truly expect things on the other side to be special, invitational, or even a kind of manifestation. It always works. On the other side of that log or lawn or line in the sand, they start beholding. Someone who is truly beholding is, first of all, silenced with the utter gratuity of a thing, a tree, a bird, even an insect. You find yourself giving it voice, allowing it to have an inherent dignity, and you let it give you a leap of joy in the heart and in the eye. What has happened is that you have begun to meet reality subject to subject instead of subject to object, I and thou, instead of just I and it. Once you can change your actual expectations, the resonance between you as seer and what you can see will also change. To behold is to allow and to taste the awe and wonder we have been talking about throughout this book. Once you decide to behold, you are present to what is, without the crutch of your preferences or the false ledger of judging things as important or not important. Nothing needs to bother you, and nothing is insignificant. A much broader, much deeper, and much wider field of perception opens up, becoming an alternative way of knowing and enjoying. The soul sees soul everywhere else, too. Deep calls unto deep, as the psalmist says. Center knows center, and this is called love. Beholding happens when you stop trying to hold and allow yourself to be held by the other. You are completely enchanted by something outside and beyond yourself. Maybe we should speak of beholding, because in that moment, you are being held more than really holding, explaining, or understanding anything by yourself. You feel yourself being addressed more than you addressing something else. This radically changes your situation and perspective. I want you to walk into some new areas today and behold some things. You will seldom be disappointed. Look at a tree, for example, until you see it in its absolute truth, as one instance of the eternal self-emptying of God into creation. When you behold the tree in this way, you move beyond its mere relative truth as either a beech or an elm, big or small, useful or useless, healthy or dying, yours or not yours, hardwood or softwood, etc. You are allowing the tree to reveal its inherent dignity as it is, without your interference or your labels. It becomes an epiphany, and the walls of your world begin to expand.
It's good stuff.
Okay. First impressions, anything that stood out to you? Anything that was a takeaway?
I have something to say about it. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you.
Yeah. As you were reading it, I was remembering different experiences that I've had. And this sounds all too familiar. It's in a good way. It's reminding me of the benefits and the energy of holding a viewpoint like this and allowing for God to be this big. It just, it, it really rang a bell with me. I like it.
Okay. Well, you should note that he's securely moving from the what to the how, right? We're no
Hmm.
longer talking about fear. We're not talking about you know, the the temperature of the water. We're now really talking about how we swim through it. And he's exhorting us to actually do something at this point. So that's the way these next 12 are going to go. So this idea of beholding. There's Ellen. So getting back to the top at 99, have you ever noticed how many of the apparitions in the Bible begin with behold? An unusual word hardly ever used in common conversation. So yeah, behold is pretty much archaic at this point, unless we say something like it was a sight to behold. We'll use it in that sort of context. But as far as the usual um, context and the way that it's used in the Bible, that's pretty archaic at this point. So it is something that's going to stand out at us. It's usually uttered as a command, an invitation, or perhaps to a call to a different style of attention. In a sense, it is a giveaway that, in fact, you can and need to switch gears once in a while to be ready to perceive what is about to come at you. So, this is something that actually we've been talking about for the last few Sundays and probably in between that as well. We've been talking about it in the context of poor Thomas, doubting Thomas, right? And when we come face to face with a paradox, and he talks about the apparitions in the Bible. So these are going to be the theophanies, right? These are going to be the visions. These are going to be the appearance of angels or God, but something that is completely paradoxical to the usual experience of everyday life. And when we as human beings, our minds, are presented with something like this, something that is so paradoxical, that is so outside of the normal realm of experience, our mind is going to register that paradox as a contradiction. That's the way we take it from the paradox, we drop it to a contradiction, and then we apply, the usual egoic process, which is to choose one side or another and then identify with it. And that resolves the tension, that resolves the conflict. And that is a typical way that we deal with these sort of things. No one recognized the risen Jesus. So who knows what, when the first followers of Jesus saw him in risen form, their mind just couldn't comprehend that kind of paradox. They know he's dead, they buried him, and yet he's right in front of them. Therefore, there must be a problem. It must be the gardener, right? It must be something else. So our mind is going to automatically do that for us. We have to be prepared to be able to really see this paradox. We must be willing and able to allow a paradox into our lives and not demand for it to be resolved immediately or as quickly as possible. And so this is something that doesn't happen overnight. To be able to see the impossible, whether it's the risen Jesus or whether it is degreeless and indiscriminate love, is something that we just can't get our arms around. We can't process. That doesn't even sound ethical to us, right? Because it means that we need to treat the enemy in the same way that we treat the neighbor. and our intimate loved ones. So this is a whole different realm of seeing, and we need to be ready for it. We need to be prepared for it. In the story of the wise and foolish virgins that we read on Sunday, Jesus is exhorting his friends after he tells the story, exhorting them to be watchful, to be ready. Right? This is another way of saying, be prepared for when the impossible comes. We all know the story that five of the girls had their lamps and they had extra oil, and five had their lamps but no extra oil. So when the groom came and they were supposed to run out and light the way back, the foolish girls didn't have any oil, and so they had to run and buy some. And by the time they come back, the party's over for them. Be watchful, be ready, be able to be prepared to know the hour of your visitation. That's another way Jesus puts it. We missed the hour of the visitation because we weren't prepared to see at that point. Even at Gethsemane, if you think about it, when he's there with his three closest friends and he goes off to pray and he comes back and they're all sleeping. Stay awake. Can't you just stay awake with me for just a little while, right? That admonition to stay awake, to be ready, and be watchful. This is all saying the same thing. Be prepared. And of course, Thomas, as our hero, doubting Thomas is our hero, is the one who says, I'm going to need a personal encounter in order to be able to trust this, in order to be able to make this a real part of my life. And we all need that. And that's part, but you're not going to even have the personal encounter if you aren't prepared to see it. And so for us, living more and more with paradox in our lives, becoming more and more aware of the paradoxical parts of our lives is going to be part and parcel to us being able to see the burning bush when it's actually in front of us. Otherwise, we'll just walk on by. He's wrapping all of that up in the word beholding. And then, of course, later on, he's going to call it behelding. And he's going to make a pretty good point about that, too, I think. Any other ideas or thoughts on that?
So in this context that he's talking about beholding, is it like, what's the right way to say this? Give me a second. It's like stopping what you're doing and noticing what's going on around you. It's a call to attention, but not an attention like you salute. An attention like is in your attention span. You have the attention span to pay attention to what's going on and what's happening right here, right now, always. Not just when you think you're having that experience, but always. Does that make any sense?
That makes sense to me.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So I wrote in the margin here my comment when I say to behold is associated with something pleasurable, or to see or to experience, and it's all but it's not wow, it's more like quiet, like oh, and it makes you be quiet to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I associate with it, and it's the same as what Scott said.
That's good too. But I think the main thing, the other exhortation that happens a lot at these moments in Scripture is don't fear, right? We hear that over and over. Don't fear, don't fear. Behold, don't fear, And so what this paradox that comes at us, the first thing it can do, of course, is create immense fear in us because we don't know how to process it. We don't know what to do with it. We haven't come across this before. The mind has no category for this yet, no place to put it. Is it friend or is it foe? Is it advantageous or is it going to hurt me? We have all of these questions in our mind, which wants to be able to put something on one side of the ledger or the other, but we don't have any place to put it yet. Don't fear. Behold. Stop. Stop processing the way you normally process and make room for a whole different realm of processing. Make room for something that you haven't had experience with before. Don't fear it, just behold it. And so all of this is going on. We are going to have to do this for ourselves. Unfortunately, we're not going to have somebody prompting us not to fear and to behold. We're going to have to learn how to become aware enough, present enough, open enough, humble enough, vulnerable enough, all these adjectives that we've been bandying about in the contemplative lexicon for years now. But that is what we're trying to cultivate in ourselves, this ability to come across something we've never encountered before, something that stands outside of all known logic and physics and experience, and let it play out. Just let it wash over us, become immersed in it, consider it, experience it, and then move through it and find a way to reincorporate it into our lives. It was incorporated once before we ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil by becoming self-aware. And now we need to reincorporate it again. But this time it'll be volitionally. We will do it intentionally. And we will still have our consciousness, but we're going to be balancing it in a way that we hadn't before. Making sense?
Yes, sir.
And these can be tiny things. That's the other thing. It doesn't have to be something huge. You know, Ellen has told us stories of swimming on her back in the pool and just looking at the sky and having a transcendent experience. You know, many of us have just gone for walks and it's just the sight of a flower or a bird or a cloud formation. It can be anything that just puts us into that behold pattern, that behold moment, where suddenly we're processing on a completely different level. So what happens to us spontaneously, what we want to do is cultivate the environment within ourselves so that we can have these more and more on a repeatable basis. We don't have to wait for the moment to sneak up on us. Remember when he talked about us being ambushed by God? You know, a lot of us didn't like that word, ambush. But that's kind of what's happening. You know, we're just not thinking about stuff, and then it is able to kind of slip past the mental defenses. But what we want to do is practice taking the mental defenses down so we can have these on a regular basis. And almost at, I'm going to say command, but it's not really a command. What we are able to do, though, is to repeatedly put ourselves in that environment, create that inner environment so that things are able to break through. We can't make them break through. We don't control over that, but we can make ourselves as receptive as possible. And that's what contemplation is all about. Giving God every possible chance to ambush us. How's that? So he's gonna, in this next paragraph, he's saying, this is how I instruct people on retreat. When I have sent people into the woods on retreat. Okay, so people have come to him for a retreat, and now they're going to have some free time, unstructured time, and they're going to go out on a walk. So when he sends them into the woods for that unstructured walk on retreat, I tell them to draw a symbolic line in the sand somehow and truly expect things on the other side to be special, invitational, or even a kind of manifestation. Okay, it always works. And so what he's asking them to do is this is just a little, technique. Draw that symbolic line. On one side of the line is everything that you already know. It's your regular life. It's your rational life. It's the way that your mind typically works. It's what you feel comfortable with right now because it's where you feel that at least you have some kind of control. And on the other side of that line is all that unknown stuff. It's all the wildness. It's all the uncertainty, but it's also all the adventure, right? It's the miracles. All that's on the other side. And so you're creating this symbol in your mind. And when you cross that line on this walk, you get across that log or across that line, whatever it is that you've drawn, now you're in a different world. Now you're in that magical world. Now you're in the world of possibility, where anything and everything can happen. And that's a great technique. It's a great way of looking at it. He says it always works. Hopefully that's true. Because on the other side of that log or lawn or line in the sand, they start beholding. Someone who is truly beholding is, first of all, silenced with the utter gratuity of a thing, a tree, a bird, even an insect. So that's kind of calling what Ellen was talking about. She was talking about that it calls her to silence. So once you get on the other side of that line and you are standing on holy ground, right? The way Moses was, and now anything is possible. What you're truly able to do is see things with gratuity. And so that's with grace. In other words, you're seeing everything as an absolute gift that you could never give yourself. Whatever you're seeing in the woods, you see that tree, you can't, only God can make a tree, right? You can't make that tree. I suppose you can try to grow it from a sapling, but that's not the same thing. But you realize it's just an absolute gift to you. You can't give it to yourself. And that sense of humility, that sense of gratitude, that sense of not being entitled is the hallmark of this beholding. It just takes you into that place. Everything is got a new glow about it. Everything has a different kind of value to it. That would be this idea of beholding. You find yourself giving it voice, allowing it to have an inherent dignity. You let it give you a leap of joy in the heart and the eye. In other words, you're clearing the decks so that you can really see what is there around you, and you'll see it differently. Even the commonplace things that you see every day will look different to you. That idea of how do you know that you're in love? All the songs make sense, right? You're hearing the songs differently because you are connected, even if it's just to that special person. You're so connected to them. Your boundaries have fallen away in such a way that everything else comes through as if you can actually see its aura. Colors are brighter, food tastes better, everything changes because now you're in this different space where you're not defended, you're not overthinking everything, you're letting yourself just be immersed over the moon, right? All that, and it changes everything. I think we've all experienced that at one time or another. I hope we have. This is the kind of thing that we're talking about. We're really literally in contemplation, falling in love with life. And we get that feeling. Whenever we allow our boundaries to drop, whenever we allow ourselves to really be vulnerable, that's the feeling because now we're really connected. We're not separated in our minds. It's a separation that creates all the fear and all the anxiety. Isn't that why we like going out in nature in the first place? Because it's a lot easier to do this there in the sheer beauty of things. Sometimes the sheer scale of things, right? Man, you walk through Yosemite Valley, and I defy you not to get into this kind of mode. When you see the sheer scale of those rocks, you look at El Capitan or Half Dome, it's absolutely astounding. Or that picture behind Bill and Gail, you know. I don't know if that is Australia, but I hear, Ayers Rock, that's what that rock reminds me of, is Ayers Rock is supposed to be just incredible. Looking at the red rocks in Sedona, supposedly a quote unquote vortex, but you feel something there. There's something about, I don't know if it's the magnetic uh, field of the rocks themselves or the scale or whatever it is, but you feel something different. It's a lot easier than walking through just the urban landscape and where everything is so familiar and we've got so many things to do in our daily lives. And so, yes, going on retreat, going out into the woods can take you automatically into a place where it's going to be easier to pull this off. But the principles are exactly the same. What we can do there, we can do here. We can do it in our daily activities of living. It's just going to take more intentionality. Same principle, though.
I'd be curious to hear, it's as Ellen experienced something, I'm sure that many others of us have experienced something in today, yesterday, whenever, where you're beholding what you're looking at. Today I was walking outside of the gym back to the car, and there was a trainer that is tall, strong, stately man, um, walking with his little 2.5 or 3-year-old daughter holding his hand. And that one just caught me as, a lot there. There was a lot. So to see watching them walk out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And think about the paradox, you see
Yep.
him as trainer, as the big strong guy with all the answers, and then that juxtaposed with the little girl holding his hand, and you see a whole different side, a whole different relationship, a whole different style of being in the same person. And so you're hit with that paradox. And if you don't try to resolve it, if you don't overthink it, you can just be present to it and let it transport you.
Exactly.
And that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
These things that finally come into us, they come into us like from a different world, a different plane of existence. And they're striking to us because they're so different than the way that we normally process things. And we have to be able to code shift between those two as human beings if we're going to have a kingdom life, as Jesus is talking about. But typically we want to flop down to one side or another. We want to become so overly spiritual that we're no earthly good, right? So heavenly minded, we're no earthly good. Or we're going to be over here where we're so secular that we're no heavenly good. But how about finding that sacred tension in the middle, letting the paradox stand, allowing ourselves to be able to move back and forth? That's the kind of thing that we're talking about here. But these moments of beholding, you know, they're key to cultivating. And I suppose we can just say a moment of beholding is a moment where our boundaries, our barriers fall away, as they do when we fall in love with anything. We are now one with. We're not subject and object, as he talks about in the next paragraph. We're just I thou. It's just a wordless connection that we can feel, that we're immersed in. What has happened is that you have begun to meet reality subject to subject instead of subject to object. I and thou instead of just I and it. And we've talked about those I thou relationships before. But that's what's happening. The barriers have fallen. The sense of separation between us and everything else has fallen away. And once you can change your actual expectations, the resonance between you as seer and what you can see will also change. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about dropping our agendas. We're talking about dropping our fixation on a particular outcome, the expectation that we're looking for in any moment. Most of the moments that we experience, we are looking at those as simple stepping stones to something greater, something else that we're looking for. It's a means to an end, rather than letting the moment simply be enough and an end in itself. To be able to drop the agenda, to drop the outcome, that this moment is a self-contained universe. It's all that there is, and we can let it be enough. And not judging it by just its ability to produce something else or for us to be able to acquire something else. It is its own thing, and we let it be its own thing. It's a merging of all of this into one thing. To behold is to allow and to taste the awe and wonder we have been talking about throughout this book. That personal encounter of Thomas. I need to put my hands into the wounds. He needs to have that kind of connection beyond any hearsay. And for us, beyond just the Bible. We have made the Bible an end in itself, and it was never meant to be that. The Bible is the means to the end of the encounter with God. It is the record of other people's encounters with God. Not meant for us to just stick on the mantelpiece and take a look at, but to actually then dive into ourselves, using that as model. And so the Bible evokes for us and funnels us toward our own personal encounter. It's not ever meant to be a substitute for it. And that's so important for us to see. We have made the Bible the centerpiece of our faith, and that's a beautiful thing as long as we're understanding how we're supposed to use it And it's never supposed to take the place of our own active participation with God. Once you decide to behold, you are present to what is, without the crutch of your preferences or the false ledger of judging things as important or not important. It goes right back to dropping the agenda, right? Dropping the sense of outcome that we're looking for. We don't judge the moment, we just let the moment be. We enter into the moment. We stop thinking about the moment. Nothing needs to bother you, and nothing is insignificant. We're right back to unoffendability, aren't we? The only reason we get offended in a moment is because we believe that whatever is bugging us, whatever is offending us, is a block to our outcome. It's a block to the agenda that we have in mind. But if we let go of the agenda, if we let go of the outcome, then we can be unoffendable. See how that works? We're just aware, we're present in the moment, and we're letting the moment unfold with us in it. We're unfolding along with the moment, I guess you could say. A much broader, much deeper, and much wider field of perception opens up, becoming an alternative way of knowing and enjoying. You know, when I read that line, I immediately thought of Brady and the phrase that he uses over and over when he's describing his death experience, that he was made to know. Remember how he used that over and over again? He was made to know this, he was made to know that. He's trying to say that it wasn't rational, it wasn't word-based. He just was made to know things. A much broader, deeper, and wider field of perception was open to him at that moment. And he was made to know things. An alternative way of knowing and enjoying. Just that deep immersion that communicates, but not in the normal way that we think about communicating. It's a communicating without thinking about it. The soul sees soul everywhere else too. Deep calls unto deep, as the psalmist says. Center knows center, and this is called love. And that reminds me of the Fourth and Walnut experience of Thomas Merton that we read on Sunday as well. You know, 17 years of being cloistered in the monastery, actually holding up his separation from all of secular life and all the rest of the world as the means to his holiness. And then going out into the shopping district at Fourth and Walnut and suddenly just breaking through to falling in love with all those people who he didn't know from Adam, but suddenly he feels intimately connected to each one of them as a fellow human being. And all that stuff falls away. The soul sees soul everywhere, sees that quality in everywhere, in everyone else. That thing that we are trying to access for ourselves, suddenly we see it everywhere. Deep calls unto deep, center knows center. All of this is oneness. All of this is connection, and so all of it's love. Brady talked about the same kind of experience that he had and I think it was in another store or something, where suddenly he had that breakthrough where all of these people felt like family to him, like one to him. And I'm sure we've had those similar types of experiences at times when people aren't bugging the heck out of us, right? Beholding happens when you stop trying to hold and allow yourself to be held by the other. And I thought that was a very cute sentence, the way he put that together. But what he's talking about is that this beholding is not unilateral. When we think of seeing something, when we just think of beholding as seeing, you know, behold, look at this, see this. Well, that's unilateral. And we can do that from across the parking lot. But the way he's using hold and be held, it's bilateral. There's two-way connection and communication. I love when the psalmist says, taste and see that the Lord is good, right? Taste and see. It's not just seeing that we can do from a distance. It's not just seeing where we can maintain objectivity and we can maintain distance, separation. Tasting is one of the most intimate things that we do, maybe the most intimate thing we do, which is why Jesus used it for communion, right? Take into yourself the blood and the body. Take into yourself the bread and the wine, because tasting, ingesting is as intimate as it can possibly get. So to taste and see is this idea of bilateral beholding or beholding, because we have to be intimate, we have to be connected for it to really be taking place. It's not just seeing through a scope. We're right there. We're tasting it. It's in us and we're in it. You are completely enchanted by something outside and beyond yourself. We're captivated. That would be a good word for that, right? But we're also awed by it. We're surrendering to it. Enchanted by something outside and beyond yourself. Maybe we should speak of beholding, because in that moment, you are being held more than really holding, explaining, or understanding anything by yourself. In other words, you're not in control. If you're trying to maintain control, that's the opposite of what we're talking about in a beholding moment or a beholding moment. No, this is a real-time experience that is just unfolding before you like a movie. It's just something that's reeling out. We're not trying to think about it. We're not trying to explain it. We're not reaching for our camera to document it, nothing like that. You feel yourself being addressed more than you addressing something else. This radically changes your situation and perspective. Okay, so now he's going to give us a homework assignment. You ready? I want you to walk into some new areas today. Okay? I don't know if that's possible for you where you are, but can you go someplace you've never really been before? Take a walk. Go into some new areas today and behold some things. You will seldom be disappointed. Look at a tree, for example, until you see it in its absolute truth, as one instance of the eternal self-emptying of God into creation. There's a big phrase. Hopefully that helped. The absolute truth, one instance of the eternal self-emptying of God into creation. In other words, when you're looking at that tree, you're looking at a manifestation of God. You're looking at something that is deeply tied to God. When you behold the tree in this way, you move beyond its mere relative truth as either a beech or an elm, big or small, useful or useless, healthy or dying, yours, not yours, hardwood, softwood. You are allowing the tree to reveal its inherent dignity as it is, without your interference or your labels. It becomes an epiphany, and the walls of your world begin to expand. So we're talking about not labeling things, not naming the things that we encounter, but actually moving into this contemplative space as you do whatever it is you're doing. And even if it's something that is familiar to you, which is going to be typically the case if we even go for a walk around our home or whatever. But can we try to start resisting the urge to put everything, let the mind put everything in its proper category? Oh, this house, this person, I know this, I know that, and the way we think of everything, and just suspend that and just allow us to experience things as if for the first time again. Just let it unfold to us. This is the first of the prompts that he's giving us, right? He's looking at this idea of beholding as a contemplative perception, right? We are off all the theory now, and we're trying to put things into practice. Here's a concrete step that you could take that's going to start taking you into the practice of the building blocks of what kingdom is really all about, this contemplative life is all about. And what I wanted to do was see if we can put a finer point on this. I put together 2 books, ebooks, short little guys, on contemplative practice and what is contemplation in the first place. And they've been out for a couple of years, a few years now, I forget how long. And I have their access on the website if you want to look at the whole thing. But I wanted to bring up one of them for you right now, because it ties in exactly to what Rohr is talking about. He's saying in this prompt, he wants you to take a walk, get out and see if you can get someplace you haven't been before, and then just encounter things as they are in their own inherent dignity, a phrase he uses over and over again. So there's something called a sensory walk. I called it a contemplative walk, but let me just read through this and see if this puts a finer point, because hopefully we will actually practice this, even if it's not actually going for a formal walk, but just in the way that we approach the daily things in life. Contemplative walks, as in the mindfulness exercises above, here are ways to take a walk that transforms the purpose of walking, from moving from one location to another or getting exercise, for a future weight or fitness goal, to an experience for its own sake. When we walk contemplatively, we are bringing our no agenda, mindful attitude to every step. We can experience each thing we encounter more completely when we don't name it in our minds. That's not a tree we're seeing, maybe a sycamore or eucalyptus, but a green shape against a blue background that moves and reflects light and creates a sensation, a feeling. By not naming things, we don't think about them or try to control them in any way. A contemplative walk has no agenda or purpose beyond the not naming experience of each step. So we're going to break this down into these. This is Sarah Sherwood's breakdown of a sensory walk. So we have a breathing walk. Begin by allowing your mind to focus on your breathing as you walk. Simply notice your breath. Don't try to do anything with it. Just notice. Where in your body do you feel your breath? Your abdomen, chest, back, or even high in your collarbone? What do you notice? Is your breath smooth, rhythmic, and easy? Is it hesitant, sporadic, or labored? What else do you notice that perhaps you haven't noticed before? As you focus on your breathing, does anything change without you having to purposely try to change it? And then we move into seeing walk. Shift your focus to what you see. What are the shapes, textures, movement, and colors that you notice? Can you look without naming the objects you see, even for a few seconds, but just see them as shapes, textures, movement, and colors? If you're in familiar territory, are these things you notice, are there things you notice that you never noticed before? Shift your focus to what you hear. What sounds do you hear? Listen more and more deeply. What are the sounds underneath the sounds you normally hear? Even for a few seconds, can you hear what you hear without naming the sound? What are the nuances of the sounds? Are there aspects to the sounds that you never noticed before? Now, shift your focus to what you sense in your body. As your body moves, what do you notice? Gently scan your body as you are moving, starting with your feet and ending at your head. Can you feel your muscles as they move? Can you feel the touch of your clothing, air, or sun on your skin? What can you notice that you've never noticed before? And then bringing them all together. Now see if you can bring breathing, seeing, hearing, and sensing all together as you mindfully enjoy your walk. Don't worry if you find yourself quickly shifting between these channels of awareness. Just keep practicing and see if you can, even for a few seconds, be aware of them all at the same time. What do you notice that you haven't noticed before? Okay, so this would be an exercise of a sensory or contemplative walk. And hopefully, Tony, you're really paying attention to this, because you're going to be taking the mother of all walks here in a few weeks. And it would be great for you to be able to employ this on the Capucina, right? But you can see where she's going with this. Take all of your senses, from breathing, seeing, hearing, sensing, go through the scan, and then bring them all together. But in each one, what have you seen that you've never seen before? What have you heard that you've never heard before? What are you sensing that you've never sensed before? What are you noticing that you've never noticed before? Try to see things as if all new, which means simply you're going to step aside from your mind, which is the repository for everything that you think you know. That's the essence of contemplation.
Dave, did I hear you say that you're going to have links for us to go look that up, what you just shared?
Yes, absolutely. I'll put the links in the email when I send
Okay.
the email out tomorrow. So you'll have there's two ebooks. What I did was I did 5 short 4 or 5 minute videos. Each one, just trying to get across the nuts and bolts of contemplation, the why and the how of it. And then back that up with the 2 ebooks. The first ebook is more of the nuts and bolts, kind of the what of contemplative practice. And then the second book is the how. It's breaking it down into all different techniques and activities that you can do that will start to promote more and more of a contemplative attitude and practice in your life. And it includes meditation, vipassana meditation, and centering prayer, journaling, sensory walks, and welcoming prayer, and different techniques that you can employ. So yeah, I'll give you the links to those things, and you can download the PDF if you want to. If you wanted to have it with you, you can print it
Yeah.
out.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
We've been walking a lot just because we're getting ready to go on the Camino that we're going to be walking for many, many days. And yesterday it was getting dark and we were walking back home on the trail. We're by the horse trails and we were looking at plants. We were practicing in this, and I think many of us probably do that. We just don't realize that we're doing it, that there's actually a label and maybe there's a structure. So we saw this plant far away and we're like, oh my gosh, look at, because everything was pretty green, but this plant had these like red toppings on it. And so, the lack of light, us walking back, everything looked different. We'd seen this many times in the daytime, but as we got closer and closer, we realized that this plant we were looking at, that the red was coming from all the dead leaves on the top. But it's just we just stopped to observe that, and we took that minute. Today we went to a real interesting park, and for those who would like to go for a walk, it's on Marguerite and La Paz, Padaki Center or something like that out there. And there's like if you ever want to go on a really cool walk, I can email everybody the address to, but it was really, really nice place. Yeah, and I will be doing a lot of walking and stopping and looking at things.
Yeah. Well, see if you can do it this way. And the main thing that you can say is just try not to name things in your head. Normally we have this thought stream, this ongoing dialogue with ourselves, that is always naming everything and looking at it and naming it, categorizing it, and doing the things that we normally do. Can we step aside from that and just encounter, simply experience without the narration, without the voice track, right? It's kind of like the old Raymond Chandler movies where the private eye is talking in the background and doing the background narration all the time. We want the voice track to go away. We're just going to be there, just experiencing it. See if you can do that. This is the first prompt, right? Is beholding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too with these prompts, it's practice, but I think for all of us to come to the point too where you say, oh yeah, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you sensing? By touch. But come to the point after these practices that you're no longer conscious. You know what I mean? Like, what am I hearing? But just to hear it, and you're not even conscious you're doing it. And
that's the whole point, Ellen. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you put the word "what" in there, you've already
done
it. Because if you say, "What am I hearing? What am I seeing?" Now we're already attaching words to it and we're categorizing it. We're going to label it something. We don't want that. We just want to shift our focus. If you're doing it the way she's doing it, you shift your focus from your breathing to your seeing, to your hearing, to your sensing, but you're not thinking about what it is. You're just allowing yourself to focus there. It's like you said, Ellen, it's going to go into this different place in consciousness.
So this is what happened to me once too. This was a couple of weeks ago, but then curiosity came and saying, "What is this?" So I had to text and send a picture. Actually, it was Robert who was helping me prune my tree. I go, "What is this?" And he says, it's an egg sac of a praying mantis. And sure enough, a little baby praying mantis came out. And I said, how cool is that? But I would never know if I didn't stop and say, please label this, right? The
Well,
awesomeness of a baby
and
putting
now
action.
here's the thing. There's a place for that, right? There's a place for that too. We want to know. Now, if you had just experienced it long enough and a praying mantis comes out, maybe you would have known without having to look it up, you know. But yeah, there's a place for that. There's a place for knowing that this is a sycamore tree, and this is a egg sac, whatever. That's okay. But again, we're talking about balance here. We want to be able to shut it off. And we want to be able to do that intentionally and consciously. That's what contemplation will give us, the repeatable ability to shut off the voice track, to step outside. Now, what happens when we do that is no longer under our control. All we can do is create the environment for the breakthrough to happen, for the beholding to happen. We can't make it happen. If you're trying to make it happen, you're bringing an agenda back in, an expectation of an outcome back in, and you're cooked before you begin. All we want to do is create the environment, prepare the soil, and then we wait and see what happens. So that's it. That's the difference, if that makes sense to y'all. And it can be done. William, are you speaking to us? You're muted.
Yes, I am. Okay. I was watching a YouTube video with what's his name? That Cabot Zen mindfulness guy. What's his name? John Cabot Zen, something like that. Um, Anyhow, he started the meditation by saying, um, life is the meditation, right? And this beholding thing reminds me of that idea of just, just using your mindfulness to just rest on life itself is that kind of beholding attitude.
That's very beautiful. But in my experience, it needs to be broken down a little bit before we can get there. You know, it's kind of like, yeah, the ultimate is that you're going to be able to play this musical instrument with nothing in between. Everything's in muscle memory. But in order to get there, you got to break it down into the scales and into the various component parts, master those, and then you get to the point where then you can forget it all again. And we don't want to get stuck in the complexity, but it does need to be broken down a little bit. We need to be able to repeatedly do this in order to be able then to let life be the meditation. Um, it would be nice to say that, yeah, we can naturally do this, and we can at moments. There's moments that are punctuated by these completely contemplative moments, mystical moments. But if we want to have a more seamless prayer going through life, as you're talking about, we're going to have to put some time into it, break things down a little bit. I don't know how you get around that. Did he have a way of getting around that?
Well, I didn't. I was just struck by that thought.
Yes, yes.
And it just reminded me of the beholding concept.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite thoughts from Nina says, God shows up disguised as light, as real light. So I was connecting those two things in my head, like just allowing my meditation to rest on God, to rest on reality, life itself.
And on every single moment, no matter how seemingly insignificant, if we're judging the moments as to their significance or not, we're going to pay attention to this one, but this one not so much. Then we're already cooked. We have completely obviated exactly what we're trying to do. And so, yeah, we just want to be able to enter into each moment, flow into each moment, and be there present to it. Yes, there's going to be times we need to figure out what this little thing on the tree is, and we got to call Robert and get his opinion. That's okay. We can do that, and then go right back into the wonderment of watching these insects, coming out of that sack. And we can continue to code shift between the two. We need to be able to do that. But we're going to have to develop and strengthen our weak hand. And our weak hand is going to be the contemplative one, because there's nothing in our society that is contemplative at this point. Not a thing. We're going to have to carve it out of the rock ourselves.
Mm. Yeah. Dave, I'm having this image of like a baby playing with a watch or something like that. Like they're just like you could give a baby a watch and they're just so like locked in on like all of the little details of it, you know.
Did you say a watch?
Yeah, watch like just a rich.
You know, I love that image. You know why? Because the baby will have no idea what a watch signifies.
Mhm.
It'll have no idea what the watch does. It'll just be looking at this beautiful thing, how cool it is, and this thing inside that's moving, and just fascinated, but have no meaning, no idea what it signifies or what it does. Can we do that same thing when we take a walk, knowing the significance of everything, but trying to suspend that knowing and get back to a baby looking at a watch as just this thing of beauty? That's the ticket.
It reminds me too, it's not only just seeing, but it's also being like listening to a beautiful piece of music and just enjoying it, just immersed in it.
Mhm.
So Kathy and I like this piece of music. We won't name it because
Oh, are you getting back to
teasing
Gabe
him.
Bobo for
No,
crying
no,
out
no,
loud?
no. So I'm not naming it, you see. It's what Kathy and I love. But yes, you just close your eyes and you listen to it. And you get lost in it.
Mhm.
That's what I just wanted to say.
Mhm. Yeah. And
Yeah.
if you're a musician, to be able to suspend everything that you would be doing to try to pick that music back into its component parts and the theory and the this and the that, and just get to where exactly Ellen is talking about again, where it just is washing over you as a pure sensory experience and no longer thinking about the mechanics or the theory. That's what we're trying to do in contemplation. And it's not an easy task, but it can be done.
Well, I would also offer up, we talked about babies, but I can't stop thinking about, I have a 3-year-old new dog and he's just behold on everything in life, everything. And things he's never seen before. And he's not afraid. He just wants to investigate it and doesn't know what it is. And it's kind of the same thing as a baby, really. It's just fun to watch them. They just go for it, and they're so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and they just want to see, what is this?
Perfect. Perfect.
Bring him to church one Sunday, okay?
Oh,
Yeah.
And with Bill's Bodie too, right? Bodie's like that, right?
Yeah, everybody bring your dogs on the same Sunday. Let's see how much we have to
Maybe
get
have
done.
one day of bring your dog to Sunday school, and then that's it, right?
Yeah, nothing else will get done that day.
That's
You
right.
realize
We'll be totally distracted.
So there's a Sunday in May that I'm babysitting this sweet dog Bear. So that's a day.
definitely got to bring Bear.
Yeah, he's so sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good dog. All right, we're done. Thank you for this evening. See if you can do it. See if you can, if it's not actually taking a walk like we're talking about, just see if you can approach your day in this way. Not the entire day, because otherwise you'll just be drooling in a corner the whole time. But see if you can move back and forth between this idea of beholding as we have been defining it, and then processing, beholding, processing, beholding, processing. See if you can consciously practice during the day and see where that takes you, by next week. Maybe we can report back our beholding encounters. How about that?
I like this as one of like those sacred words that you talked about that you dropped, like just behold,
Oh,
like
yeah.
that takes us there,
That would be a good sacred word. Absolutely. All right. Okay, Scotty.
Thank you, God, for the privilege of having these experiences and beholding the things that you have created. We're grateful for your creation. It entertains us. It challenges us. And it gives us a reason to live. So we want to take a moment to behold you and just explore your glory. Explore your creation. It's almost like I don't want to speak, Lord. I don't want to do that. So we just want to love you. And thank you for everything that you do for us. It challenges us to be better and to grow and to have new experiences and to behold once again when we think we've had enough or been through enough. Another moment arrives and another moment of beholding occurs. So we're grateful, Father. You did a good job, and I like it. So thank you, Lord. We love you, Jesus. It's in your name that we pray for all that you've done for us. Your name above all names expresses our gratitude. So we thank you, Lord. It's in your holy name that we pray and we give our thanks and say our amens. Amen.
Amen. All right, everyone. Have a great few days. We'll see you on Sunday.
Go out and behold something.
Bye-bye.
Behold and do not be afraid.
Amen.
Good night. Good night. Good night.
Good night, George.
Good night, George. Good night,
Good
Judy.
night, Judy. Good night,
Scott. Jordana.
Jordana.
See you guys on
Always
Sunday.
Jordana.
All right.
See you
Sunday.
soon.
Okay, bye.